should be recording now. All right. So welcome everyone again to the Active Transportation Committee meeting. Today is April 28th, 2021. Glad to have you all here today. So I'm going to go over the agenda right away. This is the order in which the agenda was prepared and sent. I will be moving some items around just because we have some presentations and want to make sure that people that need to leave early aren't sitting through the entire meeting if they need to depart. So we have the discussion items, a presentation on road diets, active transportation plan updates, which we'll be doing first, and announcements, future agenda items, open forum, and adjournment. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get started with our updates for the active transportation plan. As you all know, TxDOT has been proposing adding a dual use pathway on their upgrade to the North US 59 loop, and that's something we did include in our active transportation plan. We have Denise Garza here from TxDOT today that will be giving a presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'll let her share her screen. And she'll guide us through just a brief overview of what they're proposing.
There we go.
Go ahead, Denise. The floor is yours. And thank you for agreeing to be here today and giving us this overview.
Okay. So thank you so much for inviting me. Today I'm here just to present an update for sidewalks and shared use path for one of the projects that we are working on TxDOT, and this particular project is on US 59. Okay, so just to everybody to know what is this project is going to be consistent. This is the entire corridor that we are working right now. If you can see, this is the line, the red line, and we are splitting this corridor in 3 parts. So I represented the 3 parts with the stars. So that will be project number 1, so that will be at the north, and then second and third. I don't know if you can see my mouse when I'm moving it. Okay, so project number 1, we are planning to be letting by September 2022. So this particular project will be consisting in 3 overpasses. So this particular overpasses that will be at University Del Mar in Shiloh. And the second project is going to be consisting in only 1 overpass, so that will be at Jackman. And then the third project that will be at the airport, and that will be the last overpass. Okay, so the next slide, as I mentioned before, project number 1 will be letting on September 2022. And we have over here approximately date to begin construction. It's a tentative, right? I can say that will be happening by January 2023. And the end construction, really, I don't have the exact date, but I'm thinking that it's going to be taking from 3 to 3.5 years to be finalized. So that means that will go all about to July 2026. For project number 2 and 3, so that will be similar. That one is going to be letting on August 2024. And the begin construction, that will be by December 2024. And the end construction, we're thinking more or less that it's going to be taking from 1 to 1.5 years to finalize that particular project. So by the end of the day, maybe all the 3 projects, they're going to be finalized construction at the same time. So as in existing conditions, now I'm going to be very emphasis on pedestrians. And if you can see in here, This is a cross section as an existing. This side that will be the southbound, and this side that will be the northbound. As an existing condition, we have the sidewalk at the southbound, and this particular sidewalk, we have it as an existing 5 feet width. And the northbound, we have a sidewalk also 5 feet, and also we have a space between the sidewalk and the shared use pad, and that is 4 feet, and we have some brick pavers. And then lastly, we have the shared use pad, and that is 10 feet width. Now, with this project, this is just one of the typical sections, and I put this picture just because that way everybody's going to see that we are going to have the overpasses. So this will be the southbound, and this one will be the northbound. And because it's too small, I'm going to go to the next slide where I'm going to put it a little bigger. So this is a detail A, and this one will be the detail B. So detail A is the southbound, detail B, that will be the northbound. So, and here, if you can see, that's a bigger one. And the sidewalk that we are proposing is a 6 feet width. On the northbound, we're not going to have an additional sidewalk. So where we're going to proposing to have is a textured concrete, and that will be 6 feet. And then we're going to come and we're going to propose a shared use pad, and this particular shared use pad is 14 feet. So maybe some of you all is going to ask, what is going to be the payment design for the shared use pad? So in here, I placed the payment design that currently we are using, and that will be a hot mix. Maybe some of, we don't know what that means as shared use pads, so that's why I put this figure. And shared use pads are the two-way accommodations for bicycle, pedestrian, runners, and other users of all age and abilities. A shared use pad offers a physical separation from the vehicle traffic, either by an open space or physical barrier. In our case, we are going to have an open space. And this particular open space, as I mentioned before on the detail,
Ms. Denise?
that will be 6 feet.
Ms.
Yes, sir.
Denise, sorry to interrupt. This is Kirby Schneidman, the MPO
No, no.
director. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to ask one of the council members to sign off. I'm very excited that all of y'all are here. It's great to see 5 of you. Unfortunately, that's a quorum. And because of Texas Open Meetings Act, we're not able to form a quorum because this is not a publicly noticed meeting. So if I can ask one of you to volunteer to sign off, but do know that this video is recorded and we'll send it to you so that you can watch it afterwards. Is there anyone that would like to volunteer?
I'll go ahead and sign off. Was this not a public meeting, Kirby?
No, sir, we don't notice these as public meetings. It's just meant for staff and for the committee.
Okay, so I can't log in just to hear it.
Unfortunately, not with the requirements of the Texas Open Meetings Act, but we are recording this, and so we will make sure we'll send you a link to the video. You can watch everything that happened.
Awesome. Keep up the good work, Kirby. I'll
Thank you,
be
Murphy.
signing off.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you,
Appreciate it very much.
Councilmember, for joining us.
Denise, you can go ahead, keep going if you'd like.
A lot of
Thank you.
interest. As I say, if I may be heard real quick, could we
Okay,
make these future public meetings? Could we post these as public meetings so we
We'll discuss that right now after.
council participation, because there is a lot of interest.
Yeah, we'll discuss that right now after the presentation that Ms. Garza is giving, so she can continue, and then if you want, during our open forum, we can bring that up, if that's okay.
Okay, so then I'm going to continue then. As was mentioned, this will be the open space that we are going to be offered, and this one will be the textured concrete, and it's going to be 6 feet. And then the 14 feet as the shared use pad. The next one, I just put one slide just to discuss what is going to be happening under the proposed overpasses. So under the overpasses, we are going to have a pedestrian crossing. So if you can see in here, it's just that way I can make more emphasis, and will be the northbound, southbound, and this will be the shared use pad. If you're coming on your shared use pad, you are going to be able to continue with the street or just to continue on Loop 20 US 59. Of course, we are going to have everything with traffic signals with respect with pedestrians, bottoms, and all the stuff to be able to cross. And just to make a little more emphasis, under the bridge, we are going to continue with the sidewalk. So in here, if you can see, that will be the U-turn, and then a space, and then the sidewalk of 6 feet. And I don't know if you have any questions.
I have a question and maybe a suggestion as well. On the share use path, what would be the load rating? The reason I'm asking that is because usually utility vehicles use it to service electrical systems, water, and they're really heavy and they cause holes or just a sunken area where you can see it. And there's been a few accidents with cyclists. And the reason, I mean, my assumption is that is because the load rating for that pavement is just for bicycles and pedestrians. Once they get, 10,000, 15,000 vehicles on top of it, it breaks the pavement.
So your concern that will be the payment design that we are offering right now? The thickness?
The load rating on it. Yeah, the thickness on it.
Okay. Okay.
Or the pavers,
Well,
like the one we have right now.
So
right now we're not going to be using pavers, like brick pavers, no anymore. So now we are going to come and we are going to be using the textured concrete. But yeah, like if you are referring to the pavement design, so right now we have it as a proof roll, and then we are going to go on the top and place a time code, and then 4 inches of hot mix, and then a bounding course, and then the final payment that will be 2 inches of type B. So that means that particular payment is going to be very smooth.
No, it's not the texture on it. What I'm saying is how much weight can it hold? Because utility vehicles use it to service the electrical system, and utility vehicles run between 10,000 to 20,000 pounds heavy. And in the current pavement that you have right now, it's causing dents and holes in it.
Yeah,
So
I don't think
what
that
I'm suggesting is just to be what my suggestion is to make it thick enough where it would hold a 20,000 pound vehicle.
And Denise, are you all still allowing public? Are you all still allowing public comment on this item? I know you all had that opened, right?
Yes, right now we have the public hearing. I don't know if that is already ending or it's
The
to be
public
ending
comment period
this
ended
Friday.
yesterday.
Okay.
Oh.
The comment
And
period
no more
ended
comments?
yesterday. We will still accept comments, but they're no longer going into the virtual public meeting record. If you have comments, you can still submit them, but they're just not going to be part of the virtual public hearing record. But we will take comments and look into them, but it's as I said, it's just not part of the record anymore.
Yeah, I was just asking just because I know the purpose of the presentation was to just give a brief overview on it. I know there's a lot of technical issues that can be discussed, questions that you might have, but want to make sure that, that we don't get too much into the weeds right with everything, and hopefully there's another space where we can answer some of those questions.
And just to clear on the texture concrete that Denise was mentioning, that's not pavers. It's just like a big. It's like a sidewalk. It's just gonna have the texture stamp that make it look like brick pavers.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Denise. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the update. And we appreciate you being here. And again, we apologize about the interruption. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then if you stop sharing your screen, I'll be able to share mine. And then this, we had an update on the Santa Maria bike lane. I'm not sure if Ramon is here. Is Ramon here?
And Juan, before we move on, I'll just address the comment about noticing these meetings as public meetings. We'll
Thank you.
take a look at our bylaws. The way the meeting, the intent of this meeting is the same as our technical committee, which we record them and we get them out to the public. We want people to know what we're talking about, but it's meant to have a different standard than a public meeting where the public is there to comment, where we have to turn in the agenda many days in advance. We want it to be more flexible than that. And also there is a cost associated with, publishing, but we will look into that. Ultimately, it will be the policy committee that makes that decision if we decide to change the format of this meeting. It's a good problem to have. I want to recognize that. I'm really grateful that all y'all council members have showed up and we really appreciate that. And so we don't want it to be, no, they can't come. So we do want that participation and we will look into it and we'll address it with our policy committee. So thank you for that suggestion. We'll be looking into that.
So yeah, so next on the agenda was just an update on the Santa Maria bike lane. I don't think Ramon is here, but Kirby or Danny, you have any just brief update on that? I know that I think they restriped the street. There's some,
Yeah, I'll give a quick overview and Danny, if you want to correct me at all, you can. So you're aware of the design, the way it was designed. It was designed so that we could use that. We had enough room, we had enough right of way to keep all the lanes and to add essentially what's an additional lane. Now that's created some challenges because it's actually, because it can fit a car, which was the intent, that some flexibility in the size of that lane if we ever needed it for something else. Actually, it's being used, I can see, for parking. So maybe that wasn't the best. Maybe there's some things we need to do to adjust it, like some bollards where people can't park. But the striping is going to help a lot. Now, that whole street is going to get repaved. And so they have only done preliminary striping. They haven't done all the coloring and everything for the lanes and the bike symbols. They're going to wait to do that because the Public Works is ordering in, they've got their own equipment coming, so we can do that. Or they got some new equipment coming that they're going to be able to do the repaving of that. It's going to be a really beautiful, nice asphalt street. And then at that point, the traffic department's going to go in there and stripe it permanently with the colorization of the lanes and the denotations that it's for bicycle parking. And we may need to put up some bollards as well so people don't use it as parking in certain spots. Danny, do you want to add to that? So time frame, we're looking at a few months for final completion on that. So right now it's just temporarily striped. And we do realize there are some issues there. Danny, you want to add to that at all briefly?
No, you got it covered.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about the Santa Maria bike lanes?
yeah, we have thank you. We have a discussion item on that, so we'll probably, and that's why I wanted to give the update before that discussion item as well.
It's a good first step in us designing and adding additional bike lanes, but this is not following, it was in the works, so it's okay, but it doesn't follow the adopted active transportation plan, and that is to prioritize connections. So here forward, what we want to do is make sure we do not add legs or segments of active transportation that don't connect, because what you're going to get is a lot more criticism that, hey, well, this doesn't connect anything and people aren't using it. What we want to do is develop outward from what we already have, and that's the plan. That's the plan that's been adopted by council. Of course, it's only as good as we follow it, but staff will be reminding council members, hey, I know you're excited about adding bike lanes here, but we need to prioritize it for connections first. We need to grow out our network based on connections. And we have a potential to do that here in Santa Maria, and we'll talk about that. That's on the agenda, to connect it.
Nice. Thank you, Kirby. Appreciate that update, and Danny. Now,
Yeah, and if I maybe heard, Mr. Mendiva, just to kind
yes, go ahead.
of, yeah, the analysis was done, very early on, kind of right about the time, Mr. Snyderman was coming on board, looking at the to a path from cyclists coming from Nuevo Laredo, going down Convent, making their way through Santa Maria, and then getting to these industrial districts. And so it's this not operation. As a matter of fact, it tracks data. And when my counsel to staff and management and my former colleagues is that you look to where folks
Councilmember
are
Arquette?
already traveling,
I mean,
and
sorry,
then from there, map it out.
George, if I can suggest, your audio is cutting out a bit. If you disable your video, that will make sure that you don't cut out, I think, because we're losing a bit of what you said.
Okay.
That might help.
Is that any better at all?
It
No?
seems
Still about the same.
seems
All
to
right,
be
well,
Better.
the gods don't want me to be heard, but I'll put something in the chat. Thank you.
They don't want you to be seen. They want you to be heard.
So we'll move along.
Yes.
We'll be able to discuss this.
Children should be
further.
seen and not heard.
So next we have a presentation by Frank from Laredo with talking about road diets. So Frank, if you would like to share your screen.
Sure.
Before we
Thank
close.
Now, Juan, I understand we asked Frank to prepare a brief presentation, and he came back and said that's not possible. Brief, that is not possible. So Frank, take it away. We're excited for what
Yeah,
you got.
thank you,
for us.
Kirby, with that introduction. I don't, okay,
It's on the
can I
top.
share?
Here you go. Yes, it's starting to share.
It is sharing?
It
Oh,
says
there we
you're starting to share. It should-
Okay. Okay, does everyone see the screen?
Yes, now we do.
Okay. Okay. Well, thanks, everybody. Good afternoon. This is a PowerPoint that we put together previously for Bike Laredo when we were trying to get Laredo's first bike lane in place, and a lot of the people on this in this meeting were participated in that, and that's how it all started. And so part of that it lends itself to how we got started, but also it was kind of timely because we just finished our quarterly TxDOT Bike Pedestrian Advisory Committee meeting up in Austin a couple of weeks ago. And one of the main topics of discussion was that TxDOT's commissioners are basically giving a lot of attention to this upcoming year on getting cities to adopt the Vision Zero policy. And so that, in conjunction with all of the great work that the MPO has done on actually getting our active transportation plan up and going and adopted, we thought maybe we could just kind of bring some of this back. We added a little bit to it to really talk about educating the community on what this means and how active transportation will enhance the quality of life here in our city. And so, and also the importance of Vision Zero. It's really important to note that Vision Zero, but by the way, for those of you that don't know what Vision Zero is or the policy, it's a strategy to eliminate all traffic fatalities and severe injuries while increasing safe, healthy, equitable mobility for everybody. This is an initiative that started in Sweden. It's spread very quickly through Europe and has been really embraced in this country as well. Major cities across our country have adopted it, and it's really important to note that in Texas, we were the third city in Texas to adopt it. And since then, it's being adopted by many more cities and implemented, and this is a big push from the state as well. So we already have the table set. With that, we already have an incredible active transportation plan adopted. And it's also about educating the community on what these initiatives are and also dispelling some of the myths that come along with it. And so, of course, I'll add, this is always my favorite slide. When we talk about, active transportation and looking at, who wants to be able to, move through our city other than in a vehicle, we always hear nobody rides bikes in Laredo. And we know that to some degree that's true. We hear it's too hot. We hear how unsafe it is with all of the tractor trailers that travel through our city, and that's true to an extent. However, nobody rides bikes in Laredo. Also has to do with that we haven't been able to provide safe lanes of travel, whether they're in our streets or cultivating our trails, and that's all beginning to change, and it's really an exciting time. And again, seeing 4 to 5 council members on this call is also incredibly exciting. And because this is something that we can do as a community, and we always like to say, we're moving up to like other cities. And so that's what this is about. Again, going back to Laredo's first road diet, it was San Bernardo. It came as an opportunity when I don't know those of you that know, but San Bernardo is actually a TxDOT right of way roadway because it is I-35 in city. And so when TxDOT was actually repaving San Bernardo, it gave us an opportunity to jump onto this opportunity of being able to provide and begin to get people to understand that we could do a road diet with simply striping, which was going to be done anyway. And we went to what's referred to as the NACTO guide, which was also been adopted by the city of Laredo regarding bike ped design and planning. And we were able to initiate Laredo's first road diet. We also caught a lot of grief, meaning that we had a lot of criticism that we were eliminating a lane and that why this was going to be bad for Laredo. And we do have some information here to dispel that myth as well. We have another one, which we were just talking about, which is fantastic. It's the Santa Maria Bikeway, which is going to be Laredo's first fully protected bike lane. And again, it was eliminating really not a lot because San Bernardo prior to this intervention was just a one lane. However, the one lane was, Dan, maybe you can help me with this, 14 to 16 feet wide. Is that correct? Something like that.
About that.
About that. So Dan, being an old TxDOT engineer, tell me what a 16 lane highway lane width is designed for.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Well,
16 lane?
A 16-foot wide lane encourages speeding, correct?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so what we were having on Santa Maria were tractor trailers, going at, highway speeds because the wider the lane, you're encouraging faster lane of travel. And this gets back to Vision Zero and the idea of, providing safer streets for our community. But this was a great intervention because it didn't eliminate anything. The 2 lanes still exist. You still have that turning lane in the center. And now you have a fully protected bike lane for the community. So what is a road diet? We hear this a lot, and it's important that we explain what this is and that we can begin to educate the community on what it is. It is also known as a rechannelization. This is an engineering term where you can effectively reduce the width of a road by maintaining the line of travel safely, but at the same time, we get to improve it by adding bike lanes and pedestrian islands, traffic stops, transit stops for mass transit, and you can provide parking. So basically, if you look on the before, that is San Bernardo. That's exactly what we had. We had 2 lanes of travel in each direction, north-south. And then based on a reduction in the width of that street, which, by the way, calms traffic, slows it down to the speed limit, you get to eliminate that, and you get to add more travel opportunities for people other than just being in a vehicle. There's 3 areas we wanted to talk about that explain why this is safer and more efficient in terms of relating to crashes. Number 1 is that when you have a car in the left diagram stopping to make that left turn, by the way, stopping in the fast lane, the car right behind it, suddenly the car stops, swerves over, and then hits the car on the right lane. Okay, that gets eliminated. Another one is that when you have the car on the upper left making that turn, car approaching in the opposite direction blinds that car, and you're looking at a potential accident there as well. And then thirdly, again, a sudden stop to make that left in that left lane, quote, fast lane, encourages a rear end collision. And there's a fourth one actually also. By eliminating those lanes and having that center turn lane, that becomes a great opportunity for an emergency vehicle to travel without disrupting traffic. Of course, vehicles will pull over for that emergency vehicle anyway, but that becomes an emergency lane as well. So these are some of the reasons why reducing those lane widths and encouraging other forms of mobility are important for our city. It's important to notice that these are statistics that have been put out nationally. Overall crash reductions have been from 19 to 47%. It gives us the opportunity to install bike lanes. This is important when the cross section is reallocated, and that not every road can be on a road diet. We know that, but there are ones that we can target. And going back to what Mr. Steinman talked about, in terms of connectivity to that MPO bike active transportation plan, we can look for specific roads that will accept this kind of intervention. This also encourages a complete street environment, which we're going to end the presentation with. And it's also generally a low-cost option where reconstruction or simple overlay projects can be incorporated at no cost. And this is also, we think, a timely time to talk about this, because we know that at council meetings, we've heard, I believe Dr. Marte Martinez talked about it, and other council members talked about resurfacing our roads right now. So this is like the perfect storm of working with the state, with Vision Zero, adopting our complete street policy that I know that Mr. Steinman wants to do, as well as looking at resurfacing. This is an opportunity to look at some of these streets. The methodology is clear. It's been laid out for us. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's important to engage the public and the stakeholders and get them to understand what this is and why this is important and why this is safer for all. And that's critically important, because if you just start doing this, you're going to get a lot of angry people, and we all kind of know that happens as well. So we have to do our best. There's also ways of, once you do it, you can, before you do it, you have, and Mr. McGee knows about all this, you know, you have to do the appropriate traffic counts and all the things that the traffic engineers do. All of that needs to be conducted before, to make sure that this is the right approach to the right street. You just don't decide to do it. I mean, it works hand in hand. It works with the planning department and the MPO on the planning, and then it works with the traffic department on the safety and the implementation, and does it work. And then, by the way, once you do it, there's many ways of looking at, is it successful? And I'm not going to read through all of these, but all of these bullet points are methods, once the road diet is in place, to evaluate whether it is doing the things that it's supposed to do. Because you know what? Sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes maybe it has to be reversed. But there is a methodology that's established and is very effective. But we do know this. We do know that by reducing speed, we will reduce fatalities. We will reduce injuries. And these are some of the statistics, just to go to show you that by calming people down in our city, by driving, I know we want to be efficient and we want everybody to go from place to place as quickly as possible, but not at the expense of crashes and fatalities. And by the way, these statistics are just on cyclists and pedestrians. Let's not forget about the people driving those cars and their passengers as well. So that brings us to where we get to our resurface project. We have plenty of streets in Laredo, and this is just one example. We're not saying it should be here, but we're just giving you an example. This is Clark Boulevard and Park Place, right over by I-35. The opportunity of maintaining the flow of traffic safely with proper speed limits. And it could be as simple as that. And it could be striping It could be protected bike lanes. It could be painted bike lanes. There's different ways and avenues. They're all laid out in the MPO master plan. There's really great chapters on all the different ways we can approach this, but this is very doable, and we can start getting our city closer to this kind of environment. When we did when we were Bike Laredo, we had sent out we knew that we weren't going to succeed with the League of American Bicyclists as a bike friendly community because we just got started, but we knew we had to start somewhere, and we knew that if we would basically apply for this program, we would find out all of our deficiencies. And we didn't make it as a bike friendly community, but they felt like we were making such great strides in our community that they actually gave us an honorable mention. And I do want to say that if we do revisit this report card from when we issued this back, when we submitted this back in 2017, we've checked a lot of things off this list, a lot. And, we can go through them if you wanted another meeting, but we have made some great strides and really wonderful accomplishments have given out due to the effort of everybody here. And then, with the culmination of the MPO's active transportation plan, I mean, that is it. That's the exploration. That's the explanation point to the sentence that's going. The one thing that we really do need to do, and it was recommended in the active transportation study, is we do have to adopt complete streets, because that's an opportunity for us to get closer to really where we want to go when it's regarding our city and active transportation. And that's exactly what complete streets are. It's taking the city right of way and making it not just for vehicles, but making a safer environment for pedestrians, cyclists, people with personal mobility devices, yes, motorists, and mass transit, and that we can share the streets to be more equitable. And we also heard over and over again, particularly from our younger population, that they don't necessarily want to be in a car, or maybe a family doesn't want to have 3 cars or 2 cars. But this is what gets us closer to being able to offer these lines of travel to our community. So that's kind of how we want to end it. It's a culmination of all of the efforts here. It's a culmination of adopting the right policies and then, of course, implementing them. And like we said earlier in the beginning, is that we feel like this is just a great opportunity, because I think all of these the stars and planets are aligning. So that's essentially why we wanted to have this talk. We're going to end with the adopted active transportation plan, and yes, the need for a complete street policy, which is actually in that active transportation plan. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Fantastic job, Frank. And Juan, if I can make a suggestion, I would ask that in maybe the next or upcoming meeting, we actually do review together the report card and consider reapplying to become a bronze member of the
Good
cyclist
afternoon.
community.
This is Councilman Gutierrez. I have a question for you, Mr. Radowski. I'm one of the council members that brought up road diets and issues in my district in particular on Hillside and Springfield. So I brought that up, well, the last meeting or so, I think it was. I do have constituents calling over and over about that particular intersection itself, Hillside and Springfield, and Calton and Springfield. That 2-block area was made into a road diet, and people that live in the area, and I understand the study, I've read it over and over again, and I've seen exactly what you're talking about. And I've worked accidents for over 22 years, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And it makes sense. But then the constituents living there are having issues actually getting onto their street at certain times of the day, of course, when there's plenty of traffic moving around. School starting up again, of course, 7:30 to 8:30, we have issues. At lunchtime, the same thing. In the afternoon, the same thing from 5 to 7 p.m. So people are calling and just asking, why should we have to suffer in order to get on Springfield, because we live here? We had a perfect access to it when we had the 2 lanes going north and 2 lanes coming south. So they're asking me, what is my answer to it? And I'm here asking you guys, as being the professionals, yourself and Mr. Danny McGee, what should my response be? And I understand the safetyness of it, but at the same time, we need to be able to move Laredo at a faster pace or an efficient pace. And what we did, and I know studies will contradict me, but I don't see how it's going to contradict me. When you're trying to move 20 vehicles in 2 lanes, it's a lot quicker than moving 20 vehicles in 1 lane. That just makes perfect sense to me. There's just no way you can move that much traffic, you know what I'm saying, in one interval of the intersection itself. So people, like I said, they do call a lot. It's not 1 or 2 people calling. There's several, and it's on a weekly basis. When are we going to put this back? The previous council member didn't. I said, no. It's not the previous person, but it's the MPO. And then, of course, what the engineers suggest, what's safer for the community. And my question to Mr. McGee is just how can we move traffic as efficiently as we did before, moving into these diet roads, specifically at that intersection?
Councilman Danny McGee, good afternoon. We have several issues going on here, and I think the first one is unfortunate that is we are upgrading that traffic signal right now. That traffic signal was literally falling apart. I mean, we were in danger of the poles falling on top of a car. So that's where we are right now, is that it's in construction. So our detection is not working. So everything is maxing out, and it provides for a very inefficient signal right now. So what I asked for is to beg your indulgence is that as soon as we finish that construction and the detection is working, we'll go out there and we'll optimize the signal as best we can and see if that clears up the problem. Because from what I remember, it wasn't so much of a problem. It might have been some, but not as much before the construction.
Okay.
And then the other thing is that one thing that Frank didn't mention on his presentation is we had a problem with called the yellow trap. I think I've mentioned that to several people.
I was reading on that last week. Yes. Thank you.
So that's one of the reasons. We also have the same kind of situations on Bartlett. Things were done previously. Not that I agree with them 100%, but I understand why they were done. And we're going to be looking at that. As I think the council directed us to do a study on that. So we're going to be looking at that. But that particular one between Hillside and Calton, like I said, as soon as we finish construction, we'll go out there and monitor it, optimize it. And if we can't get it fixed that way, then it's just some pain. We can always go back to what it was.
Okay. No, Mr. McGee, thank you so much. Just so I can give them, an answer as to why and what we're working on. So I certainly will let them know that. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you.
I do want to add one thing, going back to what we did present. Road diets, not every road should be a road diet. That's why, and I'm not saying that the studies weren't conducted on the councilman on the area you're talking about, but that's why it is important that when you make those decisions that, you take the proper steps and do the proper homework to ensure that you don't disrupt or you don't cause congestion. Congestion is different than, just making sure people are following the limit and getting all those cars on that feeder. Because I mean, that's ultimately what we're looking at as well. We're looking at protecting, everybody, but it happens where things are implemented and they don't work. It's not that's why the better groundwork you do as you approach these projects, the better success you'll have at obtaining your goal.
Okay.
Hey, Frank, Danny McGee, I sent you a link on the chat of a good video on YouTube. It's about a 5-minute video. If you want to show it today or some other time, just look through it.
We're going to have to move on to the discussion items next. There might not be a lot of time to discuss the items. I know Frank had asked me if he could present first, since some of the presentation goes into what we wanted to discuss today. So we'll move on to that. I know there was a discussion on protecting existing trails from future development. I know this was discussed a bit at the last meeting. Frank or Fernando, you want to just briefly mention this and maybe
Yes.
5 minutes for this?
Yes, thank you. Yes, there was actually an article in the paper a week or 2 weeks ago where there's not enough parks in the city. And on the same day, I went to talk to Councilman Martinez. They're cutting part of Chilo trails. They have moved the road towards the left side. And they say, you know, well, we can't stop the city from growing, and we need to add a new road. And I see that point, you know. Just I might upset a few people, but it's for the benefit of most people. But my point is, you know, that park only represents about 0.06% of the land Laredo has. Central Park in New York represents 7% of the land Manhattan has. And I don't think they cut Central Park to be able to have less traffic. And they do have traffic and it's congested. So using that, I think there are ways, I mean, to do that road that they need to do. I talked to Mr. Martinez. He says he's going to do a bridge 10 feet high. And I took a picture of another bridge that they did in San Antonio in a park. And hopefully we can do higher than 10 feet, where we make sure that we use the other side of the park that will be cut off if they do this road. I mean, it will be probably about 1/5 of the park, but still, we don't have enough parks as it is. Cutting 1/5, it will be too much of it. So hopefully, he's in a position where we can do maybe a bigger or better bridge, higher for sure, and we'll be able to use that other side of the park. And also, maybe get more land add to this park. I know that the creek is long enough, but it's full of overgrown green. Maybe expand that park as well. And for the future, I mean, hopefully this will be the last time they have to cut through it or do any permanent building on it, you know. Maybe designated protected biological area or something like that, a designation where you cannot cross it anymore or build on it.
You're referring to shuttle trails? The shuttle.
Yeah, the Shiloh trails. Yeah.
Just wanted to make that clear for everybody. You want to add something else, Fernando, or anyone else?
No, I mean, on that topic, that's it. You know, hopefully there's a way our councilmen can work all of them together and come up with something where we don't build on Shiloh trails anymore in the future.
All right. So I know you've been having conversations with them, Fernando, and
Yes.
we'll explore ways to, what can be done in the future. We'll move on to the next item, discussion on the potential bike lane connection between downtown and Santa Maria bike lane. This was something George had mentioned earlier. Frank, would you like to speak on this, or George?
I already spoke a lot. We'll let George speak.
Let's see here.
I mean, I'll try. I don't know if my connection is any better. Does that sound okay for now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. What I was trying to communicate earlier was that if we follow the Strava heat maps, we can put bike lanes or active transit infrastructure where it's needed most. And where it's needed most is where those whom are most vulnerable among us are already braving the streets of Laredo. And so when you look at the Santa Maria bike lanes, they weren't created in a vacuum. We looked at where people were already traveling. And we made a conscious decision as a council to protect those vulnerable populations so that they could get back and forth to work. The missing leg, I would argue, would be connecting, Convent to the Santa Maria bike lane. And in my estimation, very low-hanging fruit is the conversion of Main into a bike boulevard. And again, these ideas did not come from a vacuum. Mr. McGee's predecessor, myself, and Mr. Pena from the traffic department, at expense to the city, we traveled to Portland, the one city in the United States that has really dialed in active transit infrastructure to get their communities, connected, and to address the issue. It's an equality issue. Active transit is an equality issue. I mean, to be very frank about it. And so what they did in Portland is, even though they have these extremes in weather, like i.e. very cold, they realized, hey, we can use the infrastructure for the most part that's already in place and make these types of conversions, whether it be shared use, protected, whether it be a bike boulevard. And in this case, what they did with a lot of the residential streets through Portland is they put in speed controlling measures, speed bumps, speed humps. They put in rotundas. They put in other, I guess, what you would call tactical urbanism infrastructure. Basically a lot of paint. Things that could be removed if for whatever reason it didn't work. Low cost things, and so they interconnected through neighborhoods. And what they found from their research was that, yeah, initially you had people complaining because it's new, right? Fire burn, fire bad, right? But then once people harnessed fire, well, they realized, well, maybe it's not so bad. And what ended up happening is the neighbors where they put in these bike boulevards actually became very fond of the bike boulevard because it slowed the flow through vehicular traffic such that they were able to extend their front yards and make use of a space that was otherwise a high traffic area. And so I think Maine with flipping some stop signs and some better lighting and some speed bumps, which the neighbors would probably embrace anyway, such that they keep their on-street parking, but you now have made this corridor for active transit to be able to go to and from Santa Maria bike lanes through to, there's a multiple of schools, churches, low-income housing, and ultimately Martin High School, which plugs into Convent, and Convent, as we know, plugs into the only international bike lane across a bridge, and also is a good conduit off of the El Metro Transit Center downtown. So that's my lay analysis that's based on on-site visits by city staff and myself, and based on the what I guess what you would call the NACTO, ASHTO manuals on how to do it. Yes, there are some conflict zones, like Jefferson is one of those kind of high speed, if you will, corridors. But through if we look beyond the horizon of Webb County, God forbid, and we look to Bexar County and Travis County and the rest of the civilized world, there are speed calming devices and traffic crossing infrastructure that can be utilized for purposes of getting people across these conflict zones. So that's all I have. I would hope that the council member from District 8 would take a very deep look into this, and that hopefully she would get some support from Mr. McGee, whom I know is very familiar with these other bells and whistles that are used to move people, not necessarily cars. Thank you.
Thank you,
Can I add
George.
something with the bike lane connections?
Yes, Arturo, go ahead.
Thank you. I just shared with Kirby and Juan a study that was made by the RMA, the North, it's called the North Laredo Webb County Transportation Planning Study. And there it identifies possible routes for buses, pedestrian sidewalks, and bike routes. I think it would be pretty good to incorporate it in the pedestrian bike master plan. It gives good routes. There's figure 15. It shows the map of the actual
Arturo,
possibilities. Yes, sir.
that's a great idea, and we definitely did look at what the
Thank you.
RMA did. And to George's point as well, we also utilized Strava data when we were putting together the plan. We referenced 20 plus studies and plans that have been completed previously for the city or county or for other organizations. And we also referred to every other data source you've mentioned here and others that we haven't talked about. I just want to remind everybody, in case you've forgotten and want, it's probably good to do this again and again. Where do we go if we want to see the active transportation plan? Do y'all remember? Remember where it is? If you want to look at it, you go to the Laredo MPO. So just Google Laredo MPO right here in plans and documents. There it is. You can also go to the city's website, City of Laredo Planning Department, and you can look under plans, under other plans, and it's here as well, the active transportation plan. On the MPO's website and also on the city's website, when you click on the active transportation plan, you get two options. You can either open up the plan, or you can look at a bicycle network map, which is a Google map that's really great because you can zoom in and out and see, well, where did we propose the different bike lanes? So just remember that, council members and staff and others here as part of the committee. All you gotta do is Laredo MPO plans, active transportation plan, and you'll find this map. Now, one thing I'll say is I'm really glad we're having this conversation, because even though we consulted a lot of plans and data to produce this isn't written in stone. If we do want to update this, we should. This should definitely reflect what our plan is. So right now you can see our plan for the bike lanes for Santa Maria, where it stops currently at Chicago. The plan is for it to continue on Santa Maria to get us to downtown, all the way actually to the river, where eventually we'll have another active transportation route. Now, if we decide to change that as a committee and bring that recommendation to policy committee and to city council to amend this plan, then that's a good thing that we're doing that, we're following that process, and that we stick to the plan. And as far as discussion, I'll only suggest something else, and that is, when we looked at the Strava data for where people are exiting downtown, they are using Santa Maria. So the question you might ask is, well, why don't they use another one of these local routes? Why not Main? Why not Santa Cleotilda? Why not one of these other local streets where they don't have so much traffic, a higher speed traffic going up and down? And as somebody who bicycles through downtown and up along this corridor, I can tell you that going through Maine is much more difficult because of the parking, because of the dogs, because of everything that's on there. It is a difficult route. Now, could we re-engineer it? Could we move where the parking is? Could we put in speed humps? Could we change some of the stop signs? We could do all that. But then if we did all that, at the end of the day, would bicyclists still use Santa Maria in an unsafe way because there are no bike lanes? So yes, it's low hanging fruit maybe to go off on a local road, but I would argue that it's worth making the investment on Santa Maria, because that's where people are going to use it. Intuitively, that's where people want to be. It's where the destinations are. It's where the bus routes are. It's where they get on and off the bus. And so it's a little harder, and it's going to cost more, maybe. I mean, it's still paint at the end of the day. We might need a little right of way in some places. But I would argue it's worth the investment to put it on Santa Maria, where it will get more usage. But that is an opinion, and we're definitely open to suggestions and talking that through and amending the plan if we need to.
Yes, thank you, Kirby. Thank you, George. We'll move on. And these are conversations we'll keep having. You know, that's the reason we did this committee, so we can have these type of conversations, and so we can keep looking at our active transportation plan and monitor the implementation, and make sure that, you know, it's up to date, and that if we need to change something, we can discuss that as a group. So we'll continue having these conversations. Later, at a future meeting, we'll discuss some project priorities, so we can bring up some of these projects that were mentioned right now. Do you want to let everybody know that we're at an hour? I want to be mindful of people's time. If you do need to leave, that is fine. We thank you for being here. I will continue with the agenda, but I understand if you have another meeting to get to, or if you haven't had lunch and you're going to go have lunch. There's only a few items left, and we'll probably be here just a few more minutes. So next is discussion of National Bike Month calendar. Bike Month is starting in May, and these are the bike league dates for the Bike to Work Week, this May 17th through May 23rd. It'll be great to ride your bike to work. And then Bike to Work Day is May 21st. And then we have the Ride of Silence on May 19th. Fernando asked me if I could share some pictures. Is it just a map, Fernando? You want me to? Is he still here? I don't think that. Oh, yeah. Let me see. You're on mute, Fernando.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Last year, we improvised a short ride of silence. We organized it in a week. So I want to start the same point, which was Tacotote North on McPherson. But I added a few more miles so we can ride on a higher visible road, which will be Delmar. Still a short ride, 6 miles. I think it's about 6 miles. At the bottom, it says the distance. So hopefully you can join us. It's on May 19th, 6.5 miles. So it's May 19th, 7:15, Frank, right? That's the start off point.
Yeah, I think 7:15. We'll post. You'll post it. Yeah, that's about
Yes,
right.
we'll post everything starting in May on the Laredo Cycling Club Facebook page. And for this year, I sent you another email. Do you have it?
Yeah.
Another picture, Juan? Okay. Go ahead, hire. Okay. For this year, I wanted, since last year was kind of improvised, I've always wanted to do a souvenir for everybody that participates and takes the time. So for the first 200, I want to incentivize also people showing up with the waiver sign already. So if you show up with a waiver sign, you'll get a Ride of Silence commemorative pen. It says Laredo, Texas. And for the first 200, I think I ordered about 250. But yeah, so I guess the first 230 people that show up will get a pen if they show up with their waiver sign. I mean, I'm sure you can do it right there as well, but you just want to incentivize people getting there with the waiver sign. So I think I don't know if any other city is doing that, but just want it to be a little bit different.
Yes,
That's
thank you,
cool.
Fernando.
That's great. I just did want to mention, Fernando. So if it rains on Wednesday, the date of the Ride of Silence, they ask that we conduct it on that coming Saturday.
We can
So
do that.
we've never been rained out yet, but
Yeah.
that's what they do ask. So that's really great. That's cool.
And if you all want,
And
if
then,
you have more
also
details, I could share that.
we need the armbands too. Don't forget, we need the red and black armbands.
Maybe we can get together, Frank, with some other volunteers from last year and organize it, sometime next week. I'll text you.
Absolutely. I do want to say that obviously last bike month we were pretty much shut down. We're in the height of the pandemic. However, Fernando still was able to organize the Ride of Silence, and it was the only event we had that month. And it was we're not too sure, because of all what was going on. So we have, at least in the spirit of commemorating Bike Month, we got to do it last year with just the Ride of Silence. But if you're going to choose one event to do it, that's the ride to do it. That's the event to have. And then prior to that, we were really building some incredible momentum. I mean, I think if you looked at our previous calendars, I think we had 30 to 45 events in previous bike months. I don't think we're there yet because we don't have a lot of time. I do know that Laredo Main Street did say they would like to continue because they didn't have a farmer's market last year, but the previous farmer markets with Main Street, I happen to be on that organization as well. That was a bike month was the theme to the farmer's market. It was called Bike to Market. The May will be the first farmer's market since the pandemic shut down. They've been virtual as well. So that's like another event we can add. We'll work with them to figure out what they want to do, but I think we should include them on there. It will be Saturday, the 15th of May. It's also National Historic Preservation Month, and it's also that day happens to be Founders Day, the founding of Laredo, 1755. So what we've done in the past at Main Street is we've conducted bike tours primarily downtown, and we've made them like historical bike tours. We kind of combined the market with history and with cycling. So we'll work with them to figure out how we're going to do it this year. But I don't think we're going to have 40 events. But even if we have 5 or 6, I mean, we're just getting back. I guess my only question is, do we want to have a proclamation? Because that's something we have been doing with the city up to last year's pandemic. Is that something we want to do, consider, or should we just say, okay, we got 4 or 5 events here and, let's keep it. I mean, that's up to everybody here. We don't have a lot of time.
I think we should do the proclamation. Cycling is still one of those things that can very much be done safely. And now more than ever, I mean, look at the nationwide shortage of bicycles and bicycle parts. I mean, if there was ever a time to ride, it's now. And a proclamation, I think, could capture all those whereas now more than ever is a good time to ride your bike. It's one of those things you can safely do, whereas, et cetera, et cetera. I think a proclamation would go a long, long way.
Another event we might add, Frank, Velo City approached me. They want to do a mountain bike camp for kids, for beginners. So we're just thinking setting up, it will be in May, maybe a Thursday or Friday.
Okay.
They'll provide refreshments, coaching by Ramon and maybe somebody else, and they'll provide the introduction to mountain bike for kids.
So why don't we do this then? I like that, Fernando. So let's try to spread it out. Why don't we ask each bike shop if they'd like to host one event over the month? That way we include all the bike shops and we add a couple of more events.
Yep, we'll do that. I'll talk to them this week, and then you and I, Regina, and maybe other guys, we can get together next Tuesday or something.
Okay, and well, you know what I was going to suggest, and not that if it's okay with Juan and Kirby, of course, is like maybe we should have a subcommittee meeting based on some of the people Fernando just mentioned, and anyone else that wants to join. It's going to have to be fast and furious to put it together. I know another event that's not here, but the League of American Bicyclists, by the way, they launched the Bike to Work Day and Bike to Work Week. They launched that back in the 1950s. They were the organization that brought that to the country. This year they started another one, which is going to be just they're targeting it on Sunday, the first Sunday of the month, and it's like just get on your bike and ride a bike. So that's something new that we can also add coming nationally. So again, if you guys are good, maybe pretty quickly if we can get a meeting together with those. I don't know, whoever would like to be on that subcommittee, maybe they can throw their names in now. I mean, obviously, I think Fernando, that's a no-brainer. Myself, Mr. Olgel, Regina. I don't know who for Arturo. I mean, just raise your hands and let them know, and maybe we can get a meeting together quickly. Since we have a short term.
Yeah, we'll do that over text.
And also, I guess from the city side, if we are going to have a proclamation, that would include the PIO and the city manager's office and the mayor's office. So, and then of course, all the council members that we can get. For those of you that are still online, please participate. It's a fun month coming up.
Yes, thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
And to that, Gracie shared a link in the chat box, and that's for promotional materials from the Bike League that your organizations can use, or you can use on your social media. For example, the one I have on the screen here on the right side, it's actually from there. So y'all can use that as well. And once you all do have dates and stuff for these events, I mean, we can share that with the committee once we have that concrete. I know there's a city department too that was planning to do something. Still waiting to hear if that's going to be a go or not. Once I know that, we can share that event as well. So moving on, and Frank, I'll coordinate with you after just to make sure we're on the same page with the events. Announcements, City of Laredo budget survey is available. It's a good survey to discuss your, to prioritize the different budgeting in the city. So whatever opinions you have on that, you can go ahead and do that survey. There's also the community development needs of your neighborhood survey. That's on the City of Laredo website. You'll see them on the homepage. So on that budget survey, I took it earlier today, and there is questions on there about active transportation. There's also questions about like street maintenance and things like that, or what priorities you have. So it would be a good one to take. And the community development one, needs of your neighborhood survey, that one also has some active transportation questions. So it would be good to take it. Like I said, it's on the city page. You'll see them on the front page when you go to the city's homepage. And future agenda items, as mentioned, in the future, we'll talk about the prioritization of the bicycle projects from the 10-year network, overview of the recommended off-street network along the river and creeks. And our next meeting will be Wednesday, May 26th at noon. And I think everyone, got to say what they needed to say today. So with that, we'll go ahead and close the meeting, adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for your time today. If you have any questions or anything, always feel free to email me. And if there's any other discussion items you'd like to discuss in the future, let me know. Thank you all for your time.
Thanks, Juan. Great job, Frank. Enjoy the presentation.
Thanks, everybody.
See you next month.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.